duḥkheṣhv-anudvigna-manāḥ sukheṣhu vigata-spṛihaḥ vīta-rāga-bhaya-krodhaḥ sthita-dhīr munir uchyate. Hello friends, welcome to my channel All Things Spiritual. In today's video, we will look at the sage of the steady mind through the Bhagavad Gita chapter 2 verse 56. Please don't forget to like, share and subscribe to my channel if you like the video. The meaning of this verse means that one whose mind remains undisturbed amidst misery and who does not crave for pleasure and who is free from attachment, fear and anger is called sage of steady wisdom. Who is this person and whose mind remains undisturbed and who doesn't crave pleasure, free from attachment, fear and anger? Arjuna asks 2 verses before. स्थितप्रज्ञस्य का भाषा समाधिस्थस्य केशव स्थितधीः किं प्रभाषेत किमासीत व्रजेत किम. Chapter 2 verse 54. What is the description of a man of steady wisdom who is self-absorbed? How does a man of steady wisdom speak? How does he sit and how does he move about? What's most surprising to me is that Arjuna, who has fought so many wars and is about 80 years old at the time of this exchange and is kind of having a midlife crisis in the moment of the war of the Kurukshetra, and he has aced so many ventures in his life and he was so devoted to Krishna, is shocked to know that there is a person with such kind of state available in the world. Just goes to show here that Arjuna was just absorbed in worldly activities, and even though he and Krishna took many births prior to this life and were highly attained yogis in their past births, the veil of ignorance is so strong upon him in this life that he just finds it pretty shocking that there could be any person with enlightenment available in this world. The manner of questioning itself shows that we also have this question too, that what happens after enlightenment? How would I be seeing the world? Would I still remain myself or not? Is the same thought going through Arjuna's mind at the time of the conversation? Well, I got a similar question from one of the viewers, that how am I going to keep myself in the same state being situated in Dharavi, which is a slum in Mumbai, or Beverly Hills, which is one of the high-end places in the world where only affluent people shop. People tell me that it's practically not possible to be in the same state in both these places. The problem I see with the person that is sitting in the slums of Dharavi has his eyes on Beverly Hills, and it makes him uneasy in his current state, and so he looks forward to the state of being able to shop at Beverly Hills, and so he gets uneasy and he is then attached to a state where he thinks that Beverly Hills is now the new normal compared to Dharavi, and this Dharavi is the god-forsaken place from which he needs to desperately get out of, keeping the Beverly Hills in the mind. Well, both the Dharavi and Beverly Hills are just thoughts in your mind, and you associate one with an ecstatic feeling and the other with a repugnant feeling. And due to these opposites, man comes under a burden where he then doesn't remain in his present state, and he is then far away from his natural state of calmness, and so he runs behind this mirage of thoughts that just keep bombarding him one after the other, and they say to him that that's the only thing that could make him happy. Yes, just this one more thing, and then we have to do that in order to make ourselves complete, and if we don't, there may be something missing in our lives. Leo Tolstoy, in his essay How Much Land Does a Man Need, describes a man Pahom who is a peasant determined to rise to the upper class by purchasing as much land as he possibly can. He boasts that if he had enough land, he would not even fear the devil. Over time, Pahom becomes very possessive of his newly acquired land and hostile with his neighbors. He moves from place to place, always dissatisfied with what he has and always in search of more and more land. When a stranger comes to him and tells him that a clan in a distant community is selling their excellent land at an extremely cheap price, Pahom is moved by his greed and then goes to investigate it. The chief of the clan agrees to sell Pahom as much land as he can walk around in one day. The caveat is that he must return to the exact point where he started, or the land and the money will be forfeited. Pahom sets out to encircle so much land that by the afternoon he realizes that he has created too big of a circuit. Panicked, he begins to run and is ultimately driven to exhaustion. As the sun is setting, Pahom falls down and dies. His servant buries him, noting that all he ever really needed was a 3 by 6 feet of land for his grave. So you see that it is all just a matter of perspective of what the mind allows itself to burden with. Like in the case of Pahom, immediately latched on to the thought of gaining more and more land. It's the mind that pushes this idea to the foreground so that it becomes the point of focus. This is based on our past lives and our past karmas. It is not just a case where Pahom would just stop himself by saying, no, I don't want to go further, because abstinence from a particular idea would give it more fuel to burn as thoughts in the mind, and he would be ever dissatisfied with his quest for land and would never be able to get out of that trap. So it may be a good thing that he went through and found out the futility of the thing at the end. Before death, the mind for certain had a realization of how empty the whole crusade was, and it could happen that the jiva may not go through such traps in later births. We burden ourselves unnecessarily and for no reason of our own. Seeing things happening around us, we just make up our own opinions, and that shapes our egos. Krishna tells Arjuna here not to gravitate towards such traps and be free from them. Things in nature are impermanent and they will continue to happen. There is so much to be gained by entangling yourself into the events happening before your eyes. So just keep a distance, and it doesn't mean that you have to run away from the scene, but remaining in the slums of Dharavi, to be in a state that the mind doesn't think that it's Dharavi, and also not imagining it to be Beverly Hills, but to see it as what it is and not being flown away by the drama unfolding right in front of your eyes. Now you would say that what's left of me if I don't involve myself in this drama? I get a lot of spicy news and gossip that I would miss out on. My life would turn out to be very dull and boring, and there would be really nothing left for me to do in this world then. Krishna tells this person that takes pleasure in such a life is going to be very unsteady, and he means that this person is setting himself up to be wavering, and he would be getting flown away in any direction that the wind takes him or her. He wants to know what happens next because he has entirely given himself up to the things and the happenings around him, but he has not divested from the scene. Taking back control from the scene to your own self, the sage of the steady mind that Krishna talks about, is a man or a woman who has divested himself or herself from the scene and is just viewing it as an unbiased observer, just like how the Atman would view it. He or she is then not changed by whatever is happening in the scene, and he doesn't gravitate towards the good or the bad. And yes, he doesn't take pleasure even if pleasure comes his way, since this mind is now unable to move in the direction the environment tries to forcibly push it by its various lures, and makes sure and certain that his mind moves away from attachment, fear, anger, lust, etc. He doesn't sit differently, nor does he walk differently. He is just like one of us who knows what baggage he had been carrying all along, and that all the desires that have tormented him all his life. He looks at others in amazement as to how they entangle themselves into pleasure and pain, and he cannot believe his eyes as to what the people are getting into. All he or she does is remain at peace with their self, being in the world, watching the opposites of life, and sails through without ever being affected by it. A story in relation to this is that there were two monks traveling together. One of them, a senior, was at an advanced stage in his spiritual journey. The other who was still progressing in spirituality. At one point, they came to a river with a strong current. The monks were preparing to cross the river, and they saw a very young and beautiful woman also attempting to cross. The young woman asked if they could help her cross to the other side. The two monks glanced at one another because they had taken vows not to touch a woman in their lifetimes. Then, without a word, the older monk picked up the woman, carried her across the river, placed her gently on the other side, and carried on with his journey. The younger monk couldn't believe what he had just witnessed. After rejoining his companion, he was speechless, and an hour passed without any word between them. 2 more hours passed, then 3. Finally, the younger monk could not contain himself any longer and blurted out, "As monks, we are not permitted to touch women. How could you then carry that woman on your shoulders?" The older monk looked at him and replied, "Brother, I set her down to the other side of the river, and you are still carrying her in your mind? So you see, it is just the baggage that we keep in our minds that is going to affect us. So keep away from such traps, and you can lead a calm and peaceful life." How did you like the video on the sage of the steady mind? Please do let me know in the comment section below. Please don't forget to like, share and subscribe to my channel, and I will see you next week with a new video.